Hi, everybody. Welcome to Conversations with Bizzy. I hope you enjoyed today's story. And if you do, please subscribe. Here we go. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Conversations with Bizzy. It's Valentine's Day. Isn't it crazy? We're in February. And I have to tell you something. For those of you that know me personally, know that I met my husband on Match.com. Now, this is a long, long time ago, like 2013. So 12 years ago. And there weren't all these other options like Tinder, Hinge, and Lucid. And so I'm really excited to have MJ Gottlieb here. Hi, MJ.
Hey, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Doing well. Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day to you. Now, before I go any further, you guys, so MJ Gottlieb is the co-founder of Lucid Sober App. It's dedicated to supporting the sober community by providing a comprehensive digital platform that unites those in recovery and those choosing a sober lifestyle. With over 31 years of entrepreneurial experience, he has launched multiple businesses and I can't even say that word, aimed at fostering connection and supporting for over 300 million people suffering from alcohol abuse worldwide and 38% of adult Americans suffering from substance abuse. Lucid has been recognized with awards such as Fast Company's Most Innovative Companies, number 5 of social media category, and the Weeby Award of finalists for its impact on the sober community. Pretty cool, MJ.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's interesting. When we started Lucid, and so Lucid has a sober community, a lot of people call it like a sober Facebook, which I don't like the reference, but that has maybe 150,000 members. And then we launched Lucid Sober Dating April of last year, which has about 160,000 fresh members for really sober singles looking to connect. But a lot of people think it was just a quote unquote cute idea that we came up with. But what it really was is I saw a lot of my friends relapsing and dying when there was the pressure to drink from the other side of the table. And so we wanted to create a safe and supportive space for sober singles to connect and engage in the same way that we have for the Lucid Sobriety app, the community side.
So tell me about your story. How long have you been sober?
Yeah, so March 21st, God willing, will be 13 years. I got sober March 21st, 2012. Yeah, I mean, one of my biggest challenges is I just never thought that there would ever be any semblance of fun if I ever got sober, and which happens to be one of the biggest stigmas that prevent millions of people from getting the help they need.
I felt the same way in 2006 when I stopped. You
Yeah.
know, literally came in here thinking, this is it. I'm not going to have a life. I'm going to be boring. Who am I going to date? Who am I
Yep.
going to be hanging out with? It's just life, it's going to be over as I know
Yep.
and little did I know that I was getting a life beyond my wildest dreams, which when I got sober, I thought, oh my gosh, that's BS. It's not true. You know, that whole get life beyond your wildest
I
dreams.
was
I had
just gonna
no.
say, don't you? I used to hate it when people, used to say that, or I'm living in the sunlight of the spirit, and I just cringe because I was dying on the inside. And it's funny when we say that, um, we actually get to the point that we could say that and actually be honest about saying that, and then now we're watching other people cringe.
Yeah, it's so interesting, but it has given me, I mean, I always say like today, I mean, I'm only God willing, you know, 19 in August. God
Oh,
willing.
congratulations! My sponsor used to always say, "God's willing." Are you?
Yeah.
So anytime I say God willing, I know not to say that in front of my sponsor because he says, "Oh no, no, God's willing." Are you?
So did you get sober in Florida?
No, no, I'm a newbie to Florida. So I got sober in New York City. I was in and out of 12-step rooms for God since the 90s. I have tattoos with old sobriety days. I was in and out of the rooms and in and out of the rooms, and just don't drink and go to meetings. Don't drink and go to meetings, and then I would drink. Not really understanding. My experience is the 12 steps, and I speak very um, from my own experience, but the only thing that I know that's worked for me for this alcoholics is the 12 steps. And it wasn't until I was able to actually work the program, which has very little to do with the meetings, um, but the program that the meeting that getting into the meeting, that people have the secret sauce to take you into this thing called the program. And one of my favorite speakers talks about that. He says that it's a good analogy to look at, like a person that runs into the hospital and he's in the waiting room with a broken arm and he's complaining, why his arm isn't feeling better, and they're like, dummy, the doctor's behind those doors. You're in the right place, but the treatment's in there. And that's a great way of kind of dumbing down really the difference between getting into a place where you have the ability to not only get sober but be recovered, and or compared to just sticking around the waiting room and suffering, which is what I did for decades.
So you're recovered.
Yeah, for today. I can't tell you about tomorrow.
Yeah,
And
I
and
never
people,
use that word. I
well,
never in my whole journey, I've never said I'm a recover. I just say, I'm hi Melissa.
but here's the thing. Uh, Here's the
I
thing. If
know
you
that
look
there's
at,
semantics to everything.
well, so in the big book, the word recovered is used, I forget the amount of times, an exorbitant amount of times, and it just means you're recovered from this seemingly hopeless state of mind and body for today. Now, completely different than cured, right? And so a lot of people think that it's a vain statement. It's just what the big book, which is what I follow, teaches us. And so the only thing that I really know is what I was taught in the program, in 12-step programs. And that's really the breadth of my that's my whole experience with recovery is 12 steps. That's the only thing that I've known. Now, it doesn't mean that there's not other, modalities and smart recovery and refuge recovery or whatever it may be, but I'm speaking to this alcoholic. The only way that I was ever able to get into a state of recovery was working the 12 steps and living in the steps.
Yeah, I live in the steps and I have for almost, as I mentioned, in August,
Yeah.
it'll be 19 years. I still say I'm recovering, but
Yeah.
it's semantics to me.
Yeah.
And
I hear you.
so tell me this, where did you and your partner come up with the idea of Lucid?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, I was once a hopeless alcoholic and addict, and my business partner's family's been pretty much wiped out by opioids. And so she was looking at acquiring treatment centers in 2017, and we had a couple of major issues. The first issue was one of scale. So and you mentioned, in the beginning, with 300 million people suffering from alcohol use disorder and 38% of adult Americans suffering from some sort of substance use disorder, even if we open up one treatment center, maybe we'll help. And forget about the fact that that's a $5 million check, right? So it's not, and maybe we'd be able to help 1,000 people throughout the year, depending upon the size of the treatment center that we buy. How is that ever going to help at scale, right? And for the first 17 years of my life, I was in the brick and mortar urban hip hop clothing companies. I owned and operated urban hip hop clothing industries, companies, and then I got into an agency. I had two agencies, and we would show brands how to leverage themselves on digital. And I would show these big brick and mortar brands, give me 1% of your budget, and I can show you how we can run circles around the other 99% with these antiquated, uh, um, advertising models that you're using for, radio, blah blah blah. And so when I saw tech's ability to scale, I was like, wow, we can get to 300 million people very quickly, because, like, Meta can find them, Facebook can find them, Insta can find them, TikTok can find them. It's just a matter of, do we have, what kind of a budget do we need to get to them? And so we started Lucid.
And now how many and so you have how many people on the dating app side?
So let's see, community about 155,000, and then dating has about another 160,000 new members. Yeah.
And how's it going?
It's going well. I mean, it's a grind. It's a grind because it's interesting. People look at apps and think that they're so simple, but they're one of the most complex things I've ever come across. And for me, being in the brick and mortar space for so long, being able to create a way to create amazing experiences for people in the most simple way is the hardest thing to do. And so when you look at user interfaces on platforms and stuff, every little thing from the communication of a push notification to an in-app message to every little thing requires such a level of complexity. Listen, we learned it the hard way. We built an MVP, and as soon as you started scaling it, everything started breaking in 2019. So it's like we did the launch party with Kelly Osbourne to celebrate her 1 year anniversary in November 2018, and then the app started breaking. So then we had to bring in an entire team, rewrite the entire code of the app from scratch. So to make the complex look simple is one of the hardest things to do. Tech is not easy.
And I guess you can't go to Match.com and say, "Can I have all of your software?" and just have it make it look like mine. It would be so
Yeah,
easy, right?
I know. And listen, um, Match and those companies have had some challenges. Match and Bumble, some of the bigger players had his challenges, have had their challenges because um, niche dating apps is where the market's moving to, and that's just the reality. Because when a company tries to be everything to everyone, especially when it comes to this community, right? There is no community when you try to be everything to everyone. So even, a lot of the bigger companies out there try to create sober sections, right? And sober badges and blah, blah, blah. And they weren't able to achieve it because people weren't paying attention to the sober badges. They were just looking at the hot dude or the hot girl. And right? And they
Oh my
and
gosh, when I met my husband, not to interrupt you, MJ, but
yeah,
when I met my husband, I knew I was ready to meet somebody.
yeah,
And my priest told me that I should go to online dating because every wedding, every that he has done for years,
yeah,
doesn't matter how old they are, is from online dating.
yeah.
And they sent me my husband's picture, and I winked at him. I just winked if you're not watching, if you're just listening to this. And I winked at him, and he was like, "Thanks for the wink." And not until I talked to him on the phone for the first time did I realize, I'm like, ding, 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 ding. This guy has to be sober just because sober people have a lingo
Yeah,
that's a little bit different than the average Joe. And I'm doing air quotes with that.
yeah,
Definitely can tell that somebody's worked on themselves.
yeah,
The ego isn't there. The transparency is there. The honesty is there. At least in my
yeah,
experience. I don't know if everybody has that experience, but and then I went back and looked and said, "Oh, is he sober?" And he was. It said he
yeah.
didn't drink. Yeah.
And even on the other side, I would have sober, 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 sober in recovery. I'd have that all over my shit, right? This is not in Lucid on whatever Bumble Match. And then I'd go and I'd sit down with the woman, and she'd be like, "Oh, you want to get some tequila?" And I'm like, "Really, dude?" And you don't drink? Why? What's the matter? What, are you okay? Like, how are you not gonna? How are we gonna have any fun? I was like, "You didn't read my profile at all. The shit was all over it." "Oh no, I was just looking at you and your pretty dog." You know what I mean? And I was like, "Wow." And so this is the power of community, and this is the power of niche dating apps and niche apps in general. If you look at the most successful, where the everything's going, I mean, it's all going to niche right now because there's this saying, "Those amongst us, no explanation is necessary. Those not amongst us, no explanation is possible." When you get in a community of like-minded others, magic happens. And, that's what we're trying to do at Lucid.
It's like, J Date, is that a niche one?
Yeah,
Because
it
yeah,
is.
yeah, that's been around for a long, that's been around since Match.
Absolutely, absolutely. And listen, it's like a lot of these communities, I'm not the first person to try sober dating. The the complexities of the business model is is really the problem. So if you don't know what you're getting into, and you don't have the ability to make mistakes and recover from those mistakes, and think like you could invest a couple $100,000 and suddenly have a, like, it's just, that's not, unfortunately, that's not the reality. It takes real, like, you need to think through everything, because you have to look at user churn, your retention rate, your lifetime value, your average revenue per paying user. At the end of the day, the end product is, you want to connect great people with great people, but there's logic behind it. Who are we going to serve first? If it's the man looking for the woman, are we going to take the woman that's most like, or are we going to take the woman that people think are most attractive? Do we want to take the newest members and push them to the front? Or maybe they're saying something disingenuous in the profile, so we got to put them to the end until we review them. It's a thing. It's a real thing to try to get
Wow.
the end product. Yeah, it's crazy.
So tell us, so if there's somebody listening right now and they're sober and they're like, I really want to meet another sober person, what's the likelihood of them meeting them on Lucid?
Very high. I mean, we advertise quite heavily. So most people who are sober and single know Lucid, right? In America, in America, and now some in Canada. We haven't pushed outside of that area yet, because to fill up the entire United States, like if you look at our uh, where our membership is, it goes metropolitan, and then it goes, down from there. So your biggest is New York and Los Angeles, and then the usual suspects, all those top metropolitans. And because that's really how these algorithms work on, when you do user acquisition, right? You have, um Facebook, you tell Facebook, find me people. They're gonna go to the hot spots first, and then they'll get to Iowa, and like other pockets later. It's just how it works, and unless you specifically target it differently.
So if you say, like, I'm in St. Louis, that's where I'm from, St. Louis, Missouri. So if I say I'm in St. Louis and I want to go on Lucid, are there people signed up in St.
St.
Louis?
Louis? Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I could, if I had preparation, I could tell you exactly how many people are in St. Louis. But yeah, St. Louis is fine. But it's like,
Okay.
if you're I mean, it's not going to be as good as New York or LA or Philly or Chicago, but it's going to be fine. But if you're in, Franklin, Tennessee, you may have, you know, it,
Well,
it
then you have
takes
Nashville because it's close enough to Nashville,
there you
right?
go. There you go. So you have
Yeah.
Nashville. We
Yeah.
we actually said someone that works for us is in the outskirts of, and so he looks and he sees that he has quite a significant dating stack in that Nashville area.
So do you have a lot of successes? How many do you have, like, any successes you'd like to share stories with us?
Yeah, what's interesting? We're coming out over the next month or two with success stories on Lucid. The number of matches that we've made on the platform, we released two. I forget exactly how many people that we've matched at this point. But it's, we're growing. We get in about 3 million swipes per month, where we have over, I'm trying to remember how many matches we have. I don't have that off the top of my head. We matched a lot of people. A lot of people.
That's
Matter
amazing.
of fact, when I ran into someone, and they said, "Oh my god, I met my boyfriend on Lucid." I was like, "Oh wow," and that was like a real life thing.
Where
Um,
were you? That's so awesome.
yeah, it was in and around where you and I live, and then it's so funny. I went to date someone, and I don't date on Lucid, and I'm single now as of
Wait
this
a
morning.
minute. Wait a minute. Back up. What back up? MJ, why don't you date on your own app?
Well, okay. So here's the thing. I would never do that for a couple of reasons. And and you'd only so I went to set up my profile on Lucid, whatever it was, a year and a half ago, and I started typing in, and I went to put in my bio, and and I said something like, "Here to help, not here to date, here to help anybody who has any questions," and I think I called myself Chief Sobriety Officer, right? Um, and then suddenly some of the people that from Lucid was like, "Oh my God, boss, they're saying shit about you. They're saying, oh my God, the guy from Lucid is shitting where he's eating." And I'm like, stop, relax, people. He could trigger the algorithm, and if you really think about it, I can, if I wanted to be a real, POS, I could say, I don't know what the curse policy is, but I could say, hey, send all the cute ones, put my face in front of all the cute people first and everybody else second. Like I could be a douche if
Wait,
I if I wanted to.
you can really go in to the back end and literally just get a certain group of people sent to you? But does that
Well,
happen to the average front user? Like my
yeah.
end?
So the way dating apps work is it's interesting. And I don't know how technical you want to get for your audience, but so you have logic, and the logic is weighted, and you have weights for different things, like most active user. So you can maybe define your most active or most engaged users as people that use your app over 5 times in a week, right? Okay, I want to send those people. So let's say the weight is a 1 to 10. I'll give those people a weight of a 7, right? Okay, now are the most liked people. Okay, well, we got to put the people who are most liked. Unfortunately, we got to put them to the top, right? Because that's just how everybody else does it. That's why you normally see the bit of the cream of the crop towards the front. It sucks. This is just the world we live in, right? And we're like, okay, who's sending the most messages? Okay, and so everything kind of gets a weight. Here's another one. Who's filled out at least 60% of their profile, right? So, for instance, if you just put in pictures and you're not saying anything about you, it's not going to be a really good experience. So, if you don't answer your sober questions, what's your favorite mocktail or whatever it is, we're not going to give you a good weight. And but in the profile, we say, please make sure you fill out at least 60% of your profile so you could be seen to more people, right? So that the whole thing is the logic is weighted so that you're always being served a really good mix of people that are interacting with the app. But then you're like, okay, well, what do I do with the new people? Do you just push them to the front? Well, you can't, because the new people that come in may immediately start posting pictures that could be not good, right? Maybe they
People
take a
do
picture.
that?
We throw them out all day, but they never get to the front of the dating stack because of the way that we weight our logic.
So we mean people will be on there naked or showing things that are just totally inappropriate to show another human
Yeah,
being. I mean, I was born in 1968, so I'm kind of old school. I don't even know about
oh
this.
yeah. And like, the biggest platforms in the world have this problem. Like Facebook throws out 450 million accounts per quarter. Per quarter. So we may throw out 100 accounts per day, right?
Wow.
So we have a team of people that have to catch all the riffraff and throw them out. So
Wow.
yeah.
Wow. And what does it cost to join for a month?
Um, free. It's free. It's a freemium model. So like any other app, Bumble or Hinge or whatever it is, typically 88 to 92% of your people are going to be free, and 8 to 12% are going to pay. And the 8 to 12% offset the 88 to 92% who don't. So if you want to just cruise around on Lucid, it's free. You don't have to pay a penny. If you want some elevated level of service, which is the same, it's pretty much all the things that everybody else provides, like the ability to message someone directly without a mutual like, super swipe to get you to the front of the line, boost to show you in front of 10 times more people in a shorter period of time, see who likes you, all these ways that you can kind of get a little bit of a, upper hand. And that's like $20 a month. It depends upon the subscription. It can be lower, it could be a little bit higher. If you go weekly, it'll be higher. If you go 6 months, it'll be I don't know, $20 a month or so.
Wow. And can you get verified?
Excellent question. We're going right now. That's the next step is a verification process. We verify from the standpoint of what I was just telling you about. Like there's a lot of other riffraff that there's all this type of stuff when you got to people try to fake their VPNs. They're in other countries. They try to say they're in Delray Beach, but they're not. They're really in Nigeria. So we do a lot of that verification through our own like AI systems and stuff like that. But then that next step would be to have a verified meaning not like blue check mark from the standpoint of like, oh, you're cooler than other people, but like an extra level of safety.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And how many men versus women are on your site?
Yeah, that's a good question. So it's pretty balanced, but it does cost us 3 to 4 times more to acquire a woman than a man.
What does that mean? Wait, give me that in detail. I don't understand
Yeah,
that.
so your customer acquisition cost for a man may be depending upon whether you're an Apple user or an Android user, right? You may have cost per registration maybe $6 for a man to acquire a registered user, and it may be 18 to $24 for a woman. Yeah.
Why?
Because men are I guess for one, I guess men are horn dogs, and they want to, they're a little they're a little less discriminatory, and they just want in, whereas women are a little bit more discerning. Um, so yeah, so for us to acquire a female user is quite an investment. Yeah.
What does that mean? I mean, don't you just get people that sign up? So less women are signing up than men. Men are signing up a lot.
Well, no, no, no. So all platforms to acquire a male user is anywhere from 3 to 4 times cheaper. So this has nothing to do with Lucid. Just has to do with if you look at all the user acquisition across all the major apps, to acquire a woman is way harder than to acquire a man.
So
But
on
but
your app right now, how many women do you have versus men?
we still have about a 60-40 split. So the split's pretty good. It's just we spend a lot more money and a lot more strategies to acquire women. Like, to go into the weeds a little bit, you could get a female much better on TikTok. The cost to acquire a female user is much better for us on TikTok than it is. TikTok's very good at acquiring a female download. So we'll use TikTok dollars for females. Android also is a much you can get a user for much less, more cost efficient, way more cost efficient. However, the Android user that you're acquiring is going to have a much lower likelihood of paying for a subscription.
Really?
Yeah, Android users don't like to pay historically.
Really?
Yes, I think they have something like at this point closing in on 60% of the market share, but I believe that they're only spending at around 22%.
So
Yeah.
60% of people in America have an Android.
Yeah, I think
66%.
it's between, I believe it's between 57 and 60. Android was coming close, and then they went past iOS, and now I think they're 57, 58, 59, 60%, but they only have 22% of the spending power. But think of it.
Really?
Yeah, but think of it, the reason is very simple if you really think about it. How much is the cheapest iPhone? $1,000, $1,500?
Yeah.
Right? The cheapest Android is $80. You could buy an Android device. You just go to Amazon and buy an Android device for $80 and be using it tomorrow. So the Android that you and I know is not the Android that most of the America is using. So like, it's not like people are having the Galaxy and the Galaxy Note and the stuff that's just as expensive as the iPhone. you have, when you look at the socioeconomic, the socioeconomics of it all, um, the people that have been affected more and have less, um, free kind of money to spend, they'll always go with an Android phone, and then naturally they'll be less um, inclined to pay for, $20 a month is a lot more to them than it is to, an iPhone user.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had
So it
no
gets
idea.
it's wild. It's wild.
Did you have any idea you'd learn all of this
I was
information?
just gonna say, this is what I'm talking about. Like, like we went through a period where we were loading Android users for like nothing, for like 90 cents. Like it was crazy. I was like, this is amazing. But like it was a bad experience. It was a bad experience. We were throwing out people left and right. It was, oh, this person's from this country, but they're faking and they're saying in New Jersey, and this person's saying that they're a sex worker. It was like, and just to be clear, this is just this is that I guess to my understanding, the reason why that is because overseas most of the devices are Android. So if people are trying to come in and impersonate in America, they'll fake a VPN, and we use all these kind of technologies to try to make sure that people can't fake their VPNs. And it's even happened to me where I'll be speaking to someone in, Bumble or whoever, and I'll be like, "Oh, so how long have you lived in Boca?" They'd be like, "No, I'm actually, live in, Russia, but, I may come soon." And I'm like, so why do you say that you live in Boca? So it's like, yeah, it
Okay,
happens.
can I tell you? Because one of my closest friends
Yeah.
is trying to meet somebody, right? So
Yeah.
I'm like encouraging. Now she always points out to me, Elizabeth, you met, my husband in 2013. Valentine's Day will be 2013. So what is that?
Right.
12 years ago.
Yeah.
There was none of this stuff.
Yeah.
Now she says people try to steal your identity. People are posing to be other people like you're talking about right now. I mean, it's supposedly totally not safe anymore. And so I wanted people to come on here and listen and be like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to join this, but it's scary, it sounds like.
Well, here's the thing. On Lucid, it's safe. And what I mean by that is we have put every so some platforms, they just don't care. You know what I mean? It's just load them up for the shareholders and blah blah blah. With us, every single keyword that people could possibly say, we block. Cash App, like Cash App, WhatsApp, IG Me, like all this kind of stuff to take people away from the platform, Zelle, whatever it may be, right?
Right.
Venmo, and so we put security first. So it just requires more money, and like it requires more scrutiny. But and there's still people that go through, but it's for us, it's so important for us to keep the integrity of the community. Yeah.
I love that. So
Yeah.
if somebody's listening and they're like, I'm so ready, I have a year. I love to say I
Uh-huh.
had because I had to wait
Yeah.
my first year before I
Yeah.
started dating. I have a year of sobriety, continuous sobriety. I know everybody that goes to my meetings. I don't want to hook up with anybody in the meeting that I actually go to
Yep.
because, bad things happen there. So, what are their chances if they come on to meet somebody?
Yeah, what are their chances to meet somebody would be very good if they're in an area that and they're looking for people in their proximity. It's probably pretty good. I mean, that's like a big thing is we don't want people meeting at meetings, right? Because then you break up with that person. I've seen it a million times, and then you're afraid to go back to that meeting,
Yeah,
right?
me too. Yeah, seen it
And
tons of times.
yeah, and so what we want is to be able to find people without kind of infringing upon the sanctity of meetings. Um, Unfortunately, there are people in meetings that have the wrong understanding of the traditions and all that, which is a whole other story. But so I go in and I'm wearing a sober shirt everywhere I go. Doesn't matter what it is; it's some sort of shirt about sobriety, right? and sometimes people are like, well, wait a second, isn't that a tradition violation? I'm like, no, it's not a tradition violation. It's not a problem to promote sobriety. The importance is to, protect people if they want to be safe. That's it. And we don't, and levels of press and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I mean, we take a lot of measures to make sure that we're protecting the sanctity of 12-step programs, and and that early part of people's sobriety. But I will say, if I am from the school that it's like, I've worked with a lot of people as a sponsor, and it's really nice to say, no dating in the first year. But that's from all the kids that I've ever sponsored. It's for me to tell them, hey, you're going to get sober and you're going to, keep it in your pants for a year. Like, that kind of double whammy. Like, if they're going to date anyone, I want them to date in a safe and sober environment, because every time that they've gone out on these platforms where other people are drinking, it just has not led to a good outcome. So I'd take the chances 7 days a week and twice on Sunday, putting them in front of a sober person.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. I did, for me, it was like I didn't even know who I was. To go meet somebody else in my first year. I took that first year really,
Yeah.
and the people I work with, it's just what I do, because I want to be firm to be able on my own.
Sure.
But I think that everybody gets to decide whatever they want to do. Well, it has been such a pleasure to meet you, MJ. Thank you so much for coming on.
You were very welcome. You were
Take
very
care. Take
Absolutely.
care.
It was an absolute pleasure. And everybody, for Valentine's Day, my wish is for you to find your sober connection, and definitely check out Lucid, and hopefully you will make that match.
I agree. Thank you so much. Take
You're
care,
welcome.
everybody. And remember, you're never alone. I'll be in touch before you know it. Thanks for listening to Conversations with Bizzy. I hope you enjoyed today's show. If you did, if you could subscribe, that would mean the world to me. And follow me on all social media. And you can also get my newsletter every Friday morning into your inbox. Just go to elizabethchance.com and subscribe. Take care.